You've got the public and private place, and then you've got this idea of display. Then you've also got this weird way of found object and information. And so to a certain extent what you have is a kind of, again, display of some of the ideas that are inside this exhibition, kind of the things that happen, and to kind of make an indication or point the idea that art making is part of a big cultural activity. It's not a thing where you're making trinkets for sale, but that art is part of the big culture, the capital C culture that's opera and ballet and dance and, photography and sculpture and architecture, that art making has taken itself into this place where it's become just a marketing tool, but it really needs to be put into the place where it's part of thinking in general, thinking in a literary way, about poetry, about life and philosophy, and it's about those bigger issues that affect the way that we think and live and operate in that way. Okay, so that's why you have this display of books that kind of says, art making is a bigger thing, as well as the fact that, it's in a college, so it seemed to make sense to me to kind of place it's like sort of mini library within a college place. So, that's the kind of, like I say, the kind of underpinnings, some of the things I'm thinking about, some of the reasons why I place things, where I place them, some of the things that I wanted you to get from this, some of the things I wanted you to think about as you think and explore and move. But along those lines, there's a lot of things that I'm sure I haven't said. So let me see if any of you have any real direct questions that I can take and expand on a little bit so that we can talk some more about it. Otherwise, I'll talk about some of the specifics and specific objects. But I also, I do want to encourage you to look on the outside as you move through. Come back when there's not as many, well, today's closing day, but there's other times, today's the last formal day, so, but there will be a reception later on today where you can at least stand and move around. Because the other thing I really want you to experience is the fact that just all art making to me is also a body experience. It's about our bodies being in space. So a lot of these decisions were made, with kind of directing you through physically in the space. All right, there's one other thing. The only other thing I haven't, or not the only, but one of the other things I didn't really talk about is that while the objects may appear and feel a little haphazard, a little kind of accidental, like it just was a bunch of junk that got rescued from the dumpster and dragged in here, if you look closely, I think you'll see that some of them many of them have a very distinct kind of feel to them. And one of the things they have is a feel of being common everyday things we use in our everyday life, as well as old things. They are often, a lot of them are just this little veneer, a little kind of dust of dust, a little coating of something that's older. And that was a very intentional way of calling attention just to the kind of history and legacy and piled up little story that gets put into objects. Because I want you to see and I think, and I want the viewer to get into a place where start thinking about the past in general, about how the past is constructed. So that's a little bit of what went into the decision making about how these objects were chosen in general. Thoughts? Questions? Yes.
A little, I think there are plenty of clues here as to that, but a little bit of details of some of the philosophical underpinnings of which you're speaking.
Sure. I mean, we're like really specific. Okay.
You may want to do some reading or...
Okay, sure. The title of the show comes from a book written by a French sociologist and philosopher named Pierre Bourdieu. If you can see how to spell it, if you look at like the little handout that's in the gallery. And the show is called Distinction because it's a big, massive book that Bourdieu produced where he took huge surveys from the French public about how they construct their belief system and their likes and dislikes. And it was a thing that, you know, in Bourdieu's investigations and research, not surprising from his own perspective, but he came very much to want to say that so many of how we think and choose things is based on our class, and class structure, and our upbringing, and our place in class aspirations also. And so that idea of distinction, that kind of way that we choose things that both reflect what we want and how we see ourselves, but then in addition to that we have notions of what we aspire to be. You know, that we want to distinguish ourselves in a certain way by the objects we choose and buy. Okay? So, a lot of these ideas that I'm talking about in terms of the thinking behind them, you know, come from European thinkers who have thought about class values, about class struggle, but also just about, again, how we make those decisions, including probably the best questioner in the last 200 years, but Friedrich Nietzsche. So the little marker of the book over here of the Nietzsche is